The second book I want to share with you this time around from the 2010 list is this beautiful photographic nonfiction book, Cycle of Rice, Cycle of Life, A Story of Sustainable Farming, and it's by Jan Reynolds. The book is about the island of Bali in Indonesia and how for generations, hundreds of generations, the Balinese people have used sustainable farming practices to produce rice. It all starts actually with the water and the water temples, because water is critical to the production of rice. And I'll show you one of the photographs here. This is a photo of one of the water temples sitting on a ridge high up on the volcanic peak. Through hundreds of generations, the Balinese farmers have developed an intricate and elaborate system of water collection and distribution. It's more than just simply mechanics. It's more than just simply irrigation. It's the social thing that binds them together as a people. The spirituality of their life is centered around the water cycles, the water practices, the water allocations, from the highest peaks of the mountains, volcanic peaks, down to the flatlands. Bali, for many generations, was one of the world's leading producers of rice. They used sustainable practices where they would let the fields go fallow every so many years. Following the rice cycle in a particular field, they would bring in ducks. The ducks would eat the insects, and the ducks would then provide natural fertilizer to replenish the soil. This sustainable practice is what made Bali, for years and years, one of the world's leading rice producers. But in the 1960s and 1970s, at the urging of the Balinese government, the farmers were encouraged, and in fact even forced, to adopt hybrid rice and modern intensive agricultural practices. Instead of letting fields lie fallow, they produced rice year-round, year after year, which resulted in the need for more fertilizer, more insecticides, more herbicides. The cycle of sustainability was broken. And if you know anything about what happens when some of these practices are introduced, the reallocation of water rights totally destroyed the social fabric that would bind the villages and the people together. The intense use of fertilizers only created more depletion of the soil, which then required more fertilizer. And counterproductively, Bali became not one of the world's best rice producers, but one of the world's poorest rice producers. The story of the book here is that through the intense efforts of modern-day anthropologists and modern-day agronomists, the Balinese people are trying to reintroduce the sustainable practices that for hundreds of generations had kept them functioning as a society, as a culture, and as a food producer. The problem is that they've gone too far one way, and it will probably be impossible for them to totally restore their systems to what they had previously, but they're trying. Cycle of Rice is not only a story about farming and agricultural production, but it's a story about how people are bound together as a culture through water, through the practices of their farming, through the cooperative efforts that in many previous generations led them to be one of the world's best producers of rice. If you're interested in this, it would be a great book, probably for 4th, 5th, 6th grade kids. The photographs are excellent. Here is sunset, looking at one of the water temples. It has an extensive glossary in the back, lots of references. It could lead into wide discussions about sustainable practices of farming, which can translate over into our own particular environment, because we have similar issues here with agricultural production in the United States. How do we deal with the effects of overproduction of food, the increased use of intense agricultural industrial farming practices, the move towards back to more natural, more sustainable practices, more locally grown products. There could be some interesting discussions that could go on, and you could find some really interesting topics looking at this. But this is more than just a book of agriculture. This is a book about a whole culture and a whole people and how they work together to restore their land. Okay? Happy reading, everybody.